So in this, let's take up one really good problem solving question. Try out this question. All right. Now in this question, again, couple of ways to answer it. One would be the conventional approach where you try to understand that, okay, if I call this as shaded portion 1 and I call this as shaded portion 2, how would you be able to get the answer for these shaded portions? So one is that you probably think of it as a symmetrical figure, and it is a symmetrical figure because you've got a square, circle inscribed inside it, and a square inscribed inside the circle. So it's a symmetrical figure. So if you want to find out the first area, what you can choose to do here is that you can subtract the area of square from the circle and divide it by 4, right? If you understand this, that circle minus the square is going to leave you with these 4 symmetrical portions, right? Circle minus the inner square is going to leave you with one of these, with all of these 4 symmetrical portions. Since we are only concerned with one out of these 4 symmetrical portions, you need to divide this by 4. And to be able to find out the second area, we can choose to do something similar, where we can subtract the area of circle from the outer square, and that would then leave us with the 4 corners here. Let me use crosses to demarcate those 4 corners. So we'll be left with these 4 corners over here. And in that case, again, since I'm concerned with only one out of these 4 corners, I need to divide this by 4 again, right? So this will be a conventional way of going about it. Find out the area of circle, subtract the inner square, divided by 4, and similarly find out the outer square, subtract the circle from it, divided by 4, add the 2 up, and you're going to get the answer. This might take you maybe 2 minutes, maybe 2.5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. It basically depends on your calculation speed. But there is a much way able to answer this question. And that depends on using a slightly unconventional way to go about it. When I say slightly unconventional way, what I mean is that once you realize it's basically a symmetrical figure, right? If it is a symmetrical figure, can we not just rotate the inner square? Can we just not rotate the inner square by 45 degrees to the left? Right? Imagine what's going to happen if you rotate the inner square by 45 degrees to the left. The moment you rotate it by 45 degrees to the left, you will basically find that it will turn into a rhombus. It will turn into a rhombus because you'll have something like this. When you rotate it by 45 degrees, you'll have something like this in the middle of the figure. Now, understand why is this really important is that we are given that we need to find out this area and this area. The moment you rotate it by 45 degrees, then you realize this now becomes shaded portion 1. Right? This portion, as you can see, is lying on top of this particular segment of the square. So when you rotate it by 45 degrees, this becomes this segment. So this is now shaded portion 1 that we'd taken up earlier. This, as you can see, is shaded portion 2. So now both of these shaded portions are aligned together to each other so that we don't have to figure out area of the first portion, area of the map them up. We can choose to just focus on combining these two and understand that this is nothing but a simple right angle triangle. The moment you rotate it by left with nothing but a right angle triangle, you don't have to find out the area of the two regions separately. You just need to find out the area for this common shaded portion. Now, in the question, I hope you can understand there's no reason for you to even pick up your pen to find out the radius as 8. It's given to you the area is 64 pi. If the area is 64 pi, you can equate that to pi r square and you can get the radius as 8 without really having to even pick up your pen for this. If the radius comes out to be 8 for it, you can understand that this is also the radius after all. If this is the radius, then this portion from here until here is going to correspond to 8. This length is going to correspond to 8. And this also after all is the radius. So basically this length will also correspond to 8. The area of a triangle is nothing but half into base into height. So you can understand the base here is 8, the height here is 8. So half into 8 is going to get you the answer as 32. And by the way, the other approach that we discussed, the conventional approach of adding 1 and 2 together, would have gotten you the same answer. It is just that this approach would take you substantially less time to be able to get the same answer. And on the GMAT, time per question is of utmost importance. It's not just about getting the answers right, it's about getting the answers within the stipulated time, right? So I hope you get the understanding of the fact that if you're using conventional textbook approaches, you'll end up taking way longer on the test. So you must be open and receptive to testing out slightly different ways of answering questions, so that that leaves you with extra time towards the end to be able to finish your section well before time. I would suggest that you keep the target, especially in quant, as 1.5 minutes per question. That should be your benchmark. That should be the target you should be aiming to hit when you're preparing for the exam. Keep a 30-second buffer, right? In the exam, you have 2 minutes per question in the quant section. So if you keep the buffer of 30 seconds, then even if you were to be anxious on the test, even if you were slightly nervous, you will not end up exceeding the 2 minute barrier. And the problem is that when people are practicing at home, they're practicing right on that limit, where they're taking up 2 minutes per question to be the time that they have to solve a question within. So if you're not leaving any room, any buffer for test anxiety or nervousness to creep in, then invariably, like, it's anyone's guess what can happen on the test. All bets are off then. So ideally, you must have a buffer of around 30 seconds to ensure that you're able to comfortably finish off all the questions within time, and then move on to the next section. So that's pretty much all I wanted to discuss with you today. I think we've taken up some really good questions. I hope you got some value out of this, right? So thank you so much for joining in. I'll see you guys next Monday.